Welcome back. You got Will and I Man here from the Block Runner, and today we're going to be talking about fake world assets.
FWAs, dude.
Yeah, so we all heard about real world assets.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about that. And so let's take a break from Robinhood for a sec.
Yeah.
Let things kind of cool down. We've been pretty massively exposed to the concept of porting over real world value on chain. So like, what about the old stuff, right? Well, apparently there's still some cookery about in the fake world.
In the fake world assets. Yeah, these are NFTs. That's what they're called.
Right, yeah. So there's a new protocol on Ethereum that's been getting a lot of buzz, a lot of traction. We've been actually following this thing for a while now just because of like the mechanisms involved in this thing. It's very interesting.
It's unique.
Yeah, that's what we like to see, right? It's like people, I mean, back in the day, it felt like we saw stuff like this all the time.
Yeah.
There's people experimenting with like novel mechanics, on chain. This is a rare occurrence these days, right?
Yeah.
So which is why I think it makes it interesting. And also, there's a tie back to like something we've covered in the past. So so yeah, it's something worth, I guess, adding to your context base, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Context awareness.
Yeah, just share this video with your Hermes
your
or
AI.
OpenClaw.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start here. Tokenworks. That's the project that did this FWA. In less than 3 days, 25,000 NFTs have been purchased from fake world assets for over 2.4 million USD.
I mean, that's a headline in itself. When's the last time you heard like that kind of dollar figure associated to anything in NFTs?
2021.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
And back in those days, again, it was like a
everyday occurrence.
Hourly occurrence.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, some new $2 million NFT collection just released.
minted out, yeah.
But we're in 2026, so that's why this is interesting. It's like, how are you doing this?
Yeah,
well,
so
this is how.
FWA.fun, that's the domain. And here's what it looks like. Essentially, this is a Gacha mechanic, but in a decentralized way.
Yeah, so if you are familiar with our Gacha videos, like Collect Your Crypt, there's Fidgetals out there, Courtyard. It's basically a vending machine of types, like, or a claw machine, whatever. You put in some money, you have the chance of acquiring something either of lesser or higher value. In most cases, it's usually lesser. It's like 80% chance you're going to get something worth less than what you put in.
Yeah,
right?
so here are the probabilities. Common is 61.1%, uncommon 24%, rare is 10%, epic is 3%, and legendary is 1.3%.
Yeah, so obviously what's the legendary? It's probably like
the CryptoPunks.
Yeah, stuff like that, right? So
yeah, so what happens here is that someone with a CryptoPunk or any of these NFTs, they come in and they want to earn yield because you're holding the CryptoPunk. It's just sitting there. Yeah, you're getting a lot of digital fame with that, but you're not getting any drip, any yield or anything. So here's a protocol where you could deposit this CryptoPunk, and so you deposit the CryptoPunk NFT and you deposit the other half of the value. So if this CryptoPunk is worth, 66 ETH, right? You back it with 66 ETH. And the more you back it, the higher the higher probability that you stay within the pool and it doesn't get like extracted. And so when you deposit this, when people purchase this Gacha mechanic, a portion of those fees go to the depositors.
Yeah. So it's like, what's your get for taking the risk? Because somebody's CryptoPunk did get pulled, and it's unknown whether they actually broke even, right? Because they had like 30 ETH probably backing this CryptoPunk. And so hopefully the amount of like revenue share they accrued over time, like this one, for example, has done 27 ETH, right?
Yeah, it's 27.9 ETH.
Up until this point. So like if this thing got pulled, like right now, they would have taken a loss, right?
Right.
Like a pretty heavy one too.
Yeah, because when you pull this NFT, meaning you actually won it, you can decide to keep the NFT or decide to keep 85% of the backing.
Yeah, which is exactly how a typical Gacha, Pokemon machine would work, right? It's like, I'm not satisfied with the card I got, so I'm going to instantly sell it back to you, typically 80-90% of its value. I get my money back or a portion of it, and the business gets its card back, and now it's just reinserted into the vault for the next guy who's making the attempt. And that's basically how these businesses operate. And that little margin right there is like the profits.
That's right.
The operational budget, if you will.
Yeah. So again, for this example, this guy had a CryptoPunk or has a CryptoPunk, and it's literally just in there doing nothing. But because it's deposited, These are in 28 ETH, which is like 40 grand.
Yes, which is really cool. So this is why it's getting people interested because for one, NFTs have never like really been a part of DeFi. Like, and that's kind of what this looks like. Like you're loading up NFTs backed with, real capital in the same way you would load up, tokens into a Uniswap pool and generate yield from that, right? Which is really interesting.
Yeah, and you can see all the transactions happening here on the right. All right, let's continue on here. So here's the breakdown, an explanation to fake world assets. And it says here, fake world assets is an on-chain randomized NFT acquisition protocol, and NFT position is listed in NFT paired with committed ETH backing, and the backing sets its selection weight. So less backing means you're selected more often.
Yeah.
So everyone that deposited into the pool, they get the same amount of revenue per transaction. But because if you deposit a CryptoPunk and you deposit, 66 ETH, you get to stay in the pool longer than someone who deposited, some trash NFT and, with $30.
Pretty much.
And so that guy's going to get pulled, and then the guy who stays in the pool continue earning revenue.
Yeah, so it's definitely a numbers game, a probabilities thing, situation, scenario, whatever. Yeah, and I did mess around with the depositor side of things, but only with like very low value NFTs because I don't have any high value stuff.
Yeah, you don't have a CryptoPunk.
Yeah, I wish I did, but I don't. But the low value stuff definitely got pulled almost immediately in most cases. So it was pretty hard to generate like an actual like profitable set of like low value NFTs. Like I would deposit 6 at a time. One would get pulled like instantly. Maybe one would survive like 20 or so pulls.
Yeah.
Then once they were all extracted, it was basically a wash.
Yeah.
But why is that still like worth doing at this point in time? Well, because there's a token also
That's right.
being distributed based on this participation like flywheel, right?
Yeah, so here are the docs. We'll put everything in the description. But here's the token here. And right now it's sitting at 6.7 million, but it started around, less than 500 grand.
Call it 100K.
Yeah.
So it's a typical token, but not your typical token these days, right? Where it's, typically tokens are launched through bonding curves. Therefore, there's exposure risks of, sniping and bundling and all this stuff, right? And in this case, the only way to acquire this token is literally through participating either on the purchasing side or on the depositor side, right?
Yeah, because if you pull one of these NFTs, meaning you spend the 0.04 or whatever it costs to actually, get into the game, then you get to decide. You could take the NFT, you can take the ETH backing it, or you can just convert 85% of that ETH into the FWA token.
Right, which the protocol does that itself. So, yeah, there's 3 redemption options, right? So, in most cases, people aren't keeping the NFT. It's like they want either the liquidity to keep trying to get like the grail, because that's what you want, right? You want something worth $1,000 or $10,000 or $100,000.
Yeah.
Just like in the Pokemon Gacha machines, right? I want the Charizard.
That's right.
I want the super rare PSA 10 Grail slab, whatever. But so I'm gonna keep trying and keep liquidating what I get until I get it. You may never not.
Yeah.
And that's why this kind of you can just call this gambling, right?
Sure.
But as we know, as we've been covering over the years, it's like our culture is just heading in that direction for whatever reason.
Yeah, it is.
Whether this is like a signal of end of an empire. If you go back to the Roman times, that was like a very strong signal that like the Roman Empire was about to collapse. It's like there's gambling was like everywhere at
rampant.
the very end of their run. So maybe that's I don't know.
That's a sign. Yeah.
History repeating again for our existing empire, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, okay, it's like, what do you do with that information? You play ball, right?
Yeah. You dance while the music is playing.
Correct.
All right, so Tokenworks again, they're the guys who made FWA. Fake World Assets is now live. So this is live as of like 3 days ago.
3 or 4 days, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is V2, by the way. They did a V1 like a few weeks back, but it got exploited. And somebody lost their CryptoPunk that shouldn't have lost their CryptoPunk. Somebody finagled the Chainlink VRF function to call a card that shouldn't have been called somehow.
Yeah.
So, but that has been corrected. And
yeah, so the founder of FWA actually paid for the like 30 ETH or something.
It was like 60 grand.
60 grand back to the guy who lost the CryptoPunk.
Yeah, so hats off to him.
Yeah.
Claps in the chat for that guy because, we have personal experience too of things we've built and that gone wrong. We had to reimburse people.
That's right. Yeah.
Good sign. That's a good founder, right? Somebody actually like gives a fuck.
Yeah, yeah. And so they have a history. Tokenworks built the NFT strategy from a year ago.
Remember that?
Its punk strategy started as an art project and turned into a whole new token meta. It was bound to be forked, and we felt like we should create a way to launch your own while still being permissionless and safe for buyers. We also wanted to make sure that each one strengthened the token punkster and also give value back to the project creators, artists that have slowly been cut out of royalties.
Yeah, so if you guys remember, we made these videos covering this. Like, it got pretty viral.
Mm-hmm.
It even made its way onto Ordinals. People were creating their own NFT strategies for node monks and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so what was it? It was a copycat of what Michael Saylor does for Bitcoin.
Correct.
Which is what exactly? It's like impose like a token tax for the trading of the token, and then from that use it to acquire the actual NFTs.
Correct.
And then deposit that into like a vault.
Yep.
And then just keep recycling that.
Yeah.
Until basically the music stops.
Yeah.
So.
And it's stopped pretty quickly.
Yeah. And there's a chart that kind of reflects that.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Oh, man. So you can interpret this, in multiple ways, right? Do you see a chart like this? What do you think? Is this success or is this failure?
Initially I say it's a failure, right?
Right.
But I mean, it started at under $1 million market cap and it went to 280 million.
Yeah,
in a month, right? This is 1 month of activity here.
Yeah, so it's I guess per the participants like lens to make that judgment call, right? To me, this is definitely a successful attempt at something, right?
Yeah.
To achieve a 200 million market cap in anything is like tremendously difficult.
Yeah.
Like very hard, right? So now the downside result of it just means it wasn't sustainable, right? So
yeah,
which is probably why they're on to other attempts like FWA, right?
Yeah, and attempts is good, right? This is not a bad thing to keep trying.
Yeah, because I think we're going to see why. I mean, this is a big market, right? Gachas and collectibles, whether they're digital or physical, like it's a growing market, right? And so figuring out a crypto native way of like distributing them and like this is a real unlock.
Yeah,
potential.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, Adam here, he says, what other contract is getting 65,000 transactions on mainnet in 6 days? So we're saving Ethereum.
Somebody's trying, right?
Yeah.
Is Ethereum worth saving? What do you think?
I think it is, right, TJ?
Please.
Somebody. Okay, well, if you're holding bags of ETH, then I think this is important to you, right? It's like, because it doesn't seem like there's many people trying anymore to like.
Yeah, they'd rather spin up a new chain.
Well, it's not them. It's like others are spinning up new chains. So it's like, all right, we guess we got to migrate over there and deploy our talents, wherever the invisible hand says we need to be building.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But there's still some remnants of believers in ETH, like making the attempt, right? So
yeah, and so someone noticed something happening. It was Gary. Gary's like, hey, if this is your NFT wallet, please DM me. I'm humbled by the Series 2 purchases, and I want to get closer to new whales. And so what he's looking at here is the actual vault, the decentralized vault that contains the CryptoPunks and the V-Friends that he's referring to.
Yeah, not realizing it's not a single actor here.
Correct, yeah.
Like just like scooping up his V-Friends because they're appreciators of his art.
Yeah.
It's a whole new mechanism on chain that is just perpetually buying all these assets, right? And his just happens to be part of the basket. And so that's interesting, right? Again, it's pinging the awareness of OG players, right? Gary V, might have an opinion on him or not.
Yeah.
He was a big factor in like NFT's first surge, right? So maybe he's actually catching wind of what's happening here and he might inject an opinion at some point like, hey, this is a novel concept. I like this. And then that alone could send the sentiment for FWA like through the roof.
Right. All right. And just for context, we have a tweet here. It says Collector Crypt holds 62% of tokenized collectible market share. So from 97 million in January, its monthly trading volume has grown to 406 million in June.
Yeah.
Overtaking Courtyard. So purple one here is Collector Crypt.
Yeah, and when you think collectible trading volume, don't assume this is people like actually like listing and buying assets on a marketplace. Like that's a very small fraction of what people are actually doing with these things. It's the Gacha machine that is attracting all of this liquidity on chain because it just is. That's the new flavor.
Yeah,
I think it's the new asset acquisition experience that people want. They want, right? Because it's more interesting than it's like small participants with not a lot of money. It's like they have the opportunity to potentially get lucky, essentially, and get something they could have never acquired.
Yeah, you could spend $50 to buy an asset at spot value, or you could spend $50 and have a chance to win a CryptoPunk.
Yeah, and it's happened. Somebody's pulled one, like legitimately this time.
Yeah.
And
not only that, it happened to be the guy who lost the CryptoPunk.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
It is weird.
Simulation theory type stuff. Like the odds of that is like off the charts. It's like the guy who got exploited and lost his punk, then came back for V2, just made a random pull and then got another punk.
Yeah.
So like, and then what did he do? He actually took the tokens instead of the punk.
That's right.
So interesting. A lot of good lore building behind this project. And again, it's early. It's 5 million market cap. Can this go to 250 million, 300 million like punk strategy? Probably not right away because remember that was happening during like the peak of last bull cycle.
Right.
So it's really hard to pull off numbers like that. So, but maybe over time, if this gets adopted even more so, maybe there's other versions of this lurking about that can come to market. And if that happens, then everyone's going to know and respect FWA as like, the originator.
The originator,
the OG, right? So we'll see.
All right, that has been Fake World Assets. If you guys have any questions, please put in the comment section below. Make sure you follow us on Twitter @TheBlockRunner, and thank you for watching.
Peace.